losing Jesus. Deneen, it only takes a minute, one moment, a second to lose sight of what is important. It only takes a minute, it only takes a second to lose sight of what is important. I believe it was when Elijah was somewhere between 2.5 and 3. Monica and I, we went to the department store with him because Monica told me I needed to get a new suit. She was tired of seeing me wear the same suit every week. And since she is the one who tells me what I need to wear, so I made sure that I listened to her. We went to go to a place called Dillard's. We were looking for a suit. Some of you are familiar with Dillard's. And they had a sale on men's apparel, Stephen, at Dillard's. And so I was looking in the men's department. Elijah was with me. Monica was looking just across the aisle in another department. And I was looking at suits since Monica told me I needed to purchase a new suit. And she was tired of me wearing the same suit. And so I was looking at some gray suits and blue suits, navy blue suits, so I would have some variety in my closet. And as I was looking at the suits, I found one that I liked. And so I called Monica over to take a look at the suit because it needed her approval. Y'all don't know what I'm talking about. Some of y'all do. You needed her approval before I could purchase the suit, Stephen. And so when I called her over and looked around, I did not see Elijah. I made the assumption Elijah was with Monica. And I said, "Is Elijah with you?" And she said, "No, Elijah is not with me." And so I figured he was probably just around on the other side of one of the racks, and he was not there. I called his name, Elijah, and he did not answer. So maybe, possibly, he had wandered off or something of that nature. He could not be far. It's about 2.5. He was not going to go far, and called his name. Monica came over and said, "Where is Elijah?" I said, I think he might be just right around here somewhere. And I called his name. We called his name. And then all of a sudden, panic began to slip into our spirits. We called his name loudly, and there was no answer. Monica quickly went to another department. I went to another department, thinking that he might have moved into another section. He was only 2.5, Deborah, at the time. And so called his name, did not hear him answer. Panic is moving in my spirit, moving in Monica's spirit. And she grabbed one of the clerks immediately and said, "We cannot find our son." And the clerk said, "Well, we have a procedure for this, and we will shut down Dillard's just in case, to make sure that you find your son, that maybe he has wandered off, but just in case he is wandering with someone he should not be, they will not be able to leave this building." And so they were about to put in their security procedures and said, if that does not work, we have camera footage that we can examine throughout the entire building to see where your child was and where your child went. And I was running to and fro in different departments, calling his name. Monica was calling his name. And the clerk was about to get on the phone and begin the security procedures to shut down Dillard's. And so something said, I need to go back over to the men's department. And I went back over to the men's department and called his name once again. And then all of a sudden, little hands came through the pants rack, and a head popped out and said, "Daddy, I'm here." There was an immediate sense of relief, knowing that my child was safe. But at 2.5, he thought that it was hide and seek. And so he did not answer us because he thought it was a game and it was our responsibility to find him since he wasn't lost. He knew where he was, and it was our job to find him since he knew where he was, and it was our job to find him. But it was interesting on so many levels that it only takes a minute, a moment, a second to lose sight of what is important. I was consumed and concerned with myself looking at suits. I took my eye off of my son just for a few moments, and all of a sudden, I had lost what was most important to me, and the panic went through my mind, the thoughts of maybe somebody walked off with him, the thoughts of maybe he was injured. Everything was flowing into my mind that I had lost my son. And here in the text, you have the divine royal family of Mary and Joseph as they are going to the feast of Passover. The Passover feast is one of three very special rituals within the Hebraic community. One is the Passover. That is the sacrifice of a lamb that symbolized the spirit of death passing over a household before the Hebrews were released from bondage and slavery. The other ritual is the Pentecost ritual, 50 days after Passover, celebrating God's harvest of barley and wheat. And the third is the Day of Atonement. Those three rituals, those three customs, it was the job of every good Jew. No matter where you lived, you had to make your way to Jerusalem because you wanted to be a part of this community feast, to come to Jerusalem. And there, Mary and Joseph made their way, did this every year. This was something you did once a year. It was done every year to travel to Jerusalem. The same ritual every year. They knew the liturgy. They knew where they would sit. Their family came with them. It was an entire caravan. They loved the worship. Every year, they did the same thing, the same ritual, the same custom over and over and over again, the same thing, the same ritual over and over. They made their way to Jerusalem, doing the same thing that they had been doing for years since they were children. They did this ritual. They knew the ritual. They knew where to sit. They knew what to sing. They knew what to do. They were in the same seat every single year, sitting next to the same people every single year. If someone did not show up, possibly someone maybe died, but they knew exactly what the priest would say. They knew exactly when to stand up. They knew exactly when to sit down. They had been going through this ritual most of their life. And according to Paul Tillich, the reason we have rituals and symbols is, one, they point to something beyond us. When we look at the cross, it is not just the cross, but it points to Calvary. Rituals also participate. When we look at the cross, it is also a part of the execution of Jesus Christ, but also rituals open us up to something new and new possibilities. And when we look at the cross, we think of Calvary, yes. We think of Jesus' death, yes. But we also think of grace and redemption. It points to something else. But the danger of rituals, the danger of customs is we can develop a love for the ritual, but lose sight of the relationship, that we can be so concerned that we're doing the same thing over and over again. Don't let the ritual get in the way of the relationship. And Mary and Joseph had been doing this so long, it was easy for them to lose sight of Jesus. And so often we attend church, we've been doing it so long that it's easy for us to lose sight of Jesus. We know when to stand up, when to sit down. We know the liturgy. We know all of the songs. We know exactly what we are supposed to do. And you can lose sight of the relationship when you know the ritual so well. I'm reminded when I was much younger and would go to the Progressive Baptist Baptist convention, and there was a woman who would always sing all of the songs. She was a well-trained singer, and people would clap politely when she would sing. But I remember in one particular convention they had in Washington, D.C., there was a gentleman about 87 from Mississippi. He got on the mic, sang a little off key, but when he was done, he destroyed the entire convention. I raised the question to my father, how come when the sister sings, people just clap? And how come when this brother who's from Mississippi, there's something about when he sings, it seems to go through your bones? And my father was saying, well, she knows the ritual of singing, but the other person has a relationship with Jesus. And when you have a relationship with Jesus, you can be off key but on key at the same time, because you are on the key and the key signature of God. And as often as we worship, it is important that we do not lose our relationship with Jesus. And so often, many of us, when we pray, especially in our ministries, we pray at the beginning and at the end. It is just a ritual we have to get past because we got to get down to business. And it's Howard Thurman who says that sometimes you ought to center yourself down when you pray. Sometimes he would pray and it would take 5 and 10 minutes for him to say anything, because he did not want his prayer to be just simply perfunctory. He wanted to make sure that he was connected with God, and not just to say what was flowing out of his mouth so people would know that he was intelligent. He wanted to make sure that he was in right balance and in harmony with God. That sometimes you've got to stop what you're doing to make sure that you are focused on God, that you don't get caught up in the ritual. You will miss out on the relationship. And sometimes we have to stop what we're doing to get in connection again with the relationship that we are to have with God. But look at what this family did in order to find Jesus. Now, they leave Jerusalem. It would seem strange that they didn't know that their son was with them, but with a large caravan of several hundred people that you are related to, they would assume he was with cousins or aunts or uncles. But here they are traveling outside of Jerusalem, and they realize that they don't have Jesus with them. And so they're asking friends and family, have you seen Jesus? I'm looking for Jesus. And here they are trying to find Jesus among their family and friends. They're looking for Jesus and trying to see if they can find Jesus among aunts and uncles and family and friends. And so often we end up looking to the wrong people when we are trying to find Jesus. It's not your family or your friends who will help you discover God. If your only relationship with God is through somebody else, you really do not have a relationship with God, because people will always fail you. Because when people leave you, you will not have that relationship with God. And so often we get so caught up in a person that we miss out on the relationship with God. And that has happened so often with many churches, where people put their stock in a particular individual. Bishop said this and Bishop said that, never picked up the Bible themselves. And when Bishop falls or Bishop is gone, then all of a sudden they have been broken, as it happened in one of our churches, that I know someone who had this relationship, they thought, with God, but it was really through the bishop. And when Bishop messed up, they said, I can't serve God anymore. And I raised the question, is you were serving Bishop and not serving God? Because if you had a relationship with God, you could still have your relationship with Jesus when somebody fails you. Because when you idolize a person, you cannot get to God. And I'm here to let you know that everybody in here will fail, that we've all fallen short of the glory of God. I fall short. You fall short. Don't invest in me, invest in God, because if you have a relationship with God, when the pastor messes up, you still got your relationship with God. Don't use the ritual as an excuse to jettison your relationship.